So I didn't get a chance to watch many of these games. Admittedly, I was out of town. Should this series be 3-0 or the Oilers getting unlucky?
This series should be 7-0.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
Yeah, I mean, did we expect anything less? I mean, I think Edmonton fans and I mean NHL fans in general, me as well, we got way too excited seeing after. I mean, we'll call it what it is. It was kind of a fluke what happened in Calgary. I mean, granted, Edmonton won that series. They came out, the best players played. We've talked about it. I'm not going to sit here and say they got lucky. They got lucky in the sense that not only did they play phenomenally, Calgary disappeared.
Yeah.
Right? We talked about this. They were bad. They were injury-ridden as well. Tanev was, playing with a torn labrum and like 3 broken ribs. I think Anderson had a broken rib too. I mean, Nikita Zadorov had a bunch of broken ribs too.
He had a bunch of injuries.
I mean, and not only that, the first line went silent. I don't even know if they dressed, right?
I know.
So when we talk about that, you see Edmonton look so good the way that they did in Calgary. People go, oh, they beat the powerhouse Calgary. Maybe they can do the same against Colorado. And I mean, after game 1, when they lost bad, people said the same thing happened with Calgary. Maybe it'll happen again. And I mean, they shut the door in game 2 4-0. I mean, 4 games. The series is done. I mean,
yeah, the Avs, they just seem like a different breed of team.
Yeah, I'm not hating on Edmonton. Like, I wanted Edmonton to win this series. They're not going to.
Yeah, maybe there was a little bit too much hype on the Oilers. Understandably so. We're seeing McDavid and Draisaitl and even Kane have historical performances of the first 2 rounds, but they're meeting a true contender right now, and I guess they're getting shown.
When you play a team with extreme offensive firepower, I mean, being built from the back up is so important. Like we said, Mike Smith isn't a top 10 goalie in the league. When he plays well, he might be, but he plays well once every 3 games. And I mean,
yeah, he's too inconsistent.
Defensively, they're a shell of the former Toronto Maple Leafs with Barry and Ceci. Their Darnell Nurse might be, per dollar spent on the cap, the most overrated player in the NHL.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about that contract soon.
Yeah, I mean, and let's be clear. This should have happened in round 2. Right? Colorado, the only team that can match Colorado's offensive firepower in the West was Calgary, right? And they fell asleep at the wheel in round 2. So everyone, I think, overestimated the fact that Edmonton was good enough to play against a cup contending team. But yeah, I think they were brought back to reality. I mean, one thing that's really important in this series is that Nathan MacKinnon is showing that he's a top 2 player in the league and he can compete with Connor on the biggest stage. He's got 2 goals, 2 assists in 3 games. And I'm saying this before Game 4 is filmed. This will be released after that. And I mean, yeah, if all goes to plan, this series is done by the release date of this episode.
Yeah, that kind of sucks. Like we're Leafs fans, so we're not fans of the Oilers. We're neither here nor there. But it would have been, I don't know. It's kind of a slap in the face to potentially get swept after having like a crazy battle of Alberta, 7-gamer against LA. But I guess I hope we're talking like the series is done. And it's not, but it kind of is. But if they do end up losing this series, I hope this is sort of a point where they can sort of look and say we're good. We have elite offensive players and up and down our lineup, because I think their depth has been underrated and it's showing up this past couple of series. But defensively, they got some holes, so they need to find a solution in net. They need to find a solution on the back end. Hopefully, this kind of opens the door for that to happen in the offseason. And hopefully you learn from maybe your weaknesses and don't try and big brain or galaxy brain some solution. I don't know if I can trust Ken Holland, but if you're going to lose, hopefully something good comes out of it so next year you can make a run again.
Yeah, like some holes. It's one gaping hole back there defensively. Who are their top 6? It's Darnell Nurse, who's terrible defensively. It's Duncan Keith, who needs a respirator in between intermissions. It's Cody Ceci, who almost didn't make the Leafs.
Tyson Barrie,
who got kicked off the Leafs at this point. Kulak, I mean, hasn't been bad.
He's good. He's solid, but he's not the guy.
Yeah, he's a solid 3rd pairing defenseman. And then the last one is Evan Bouchard, who's been a good surprise.
He's actually been really good, right? Evan Bouchard.
But that decor shouldn't even be good enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah, right? It's definitely subpar, to say the least.
I mean, and then when you look at it on the other side, I mean, Colorado, it's scary to say, might have the best defensive core in the league.
And they're missing Sam Girard, and they're still probably them and Tampa are neck and neck. You might even want to take the Avs. They're crazy. I would take them over Tampa right now, probably.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think their best defenseman's better than Tampa's best defenseman, and Colorado's second best for defenseman kind of competes with Hedman this year. Devon Taves has been playing fantastic this year.
So good.
I think a huge underrated part of this series is Makar on defense. There was a specific play in game 1 where it was all over the highlight reels on SportsCenter. McDavid came at Cale Makar one-on-one, full speed. And I don't know why, I don't want to seem dramatic here, but it seemed like a defining moment in the series where you saw arguably the best player on Colorado go against the best player on Edmonton one-on-one, and we're saying who's better in this series. McDavid came at him with this force I have never seen, just full speed, and Makar made him look like a third-line center.
Just ushered him out.
It was a very underrated part of the game that was maybe inconspicuous to some people, but McDavid tried to burn him on the wing, and Makar, with beautiful footwork, kept him to the outside and uses his stick and poke checks it away, sends it into the corner. If McDavid comes at that speed against any other defenseman in the NHL in the playoffs, he's blowing by him and scoring a goal.
Yeah, Makar, I had this saved for like our awards preview, so a little tease for what we're going to get into later, but he's by far the best skater in the league.
It's not even
Makar.
close.
He's so good.
Yeah, and doesn't have to be the fastest, but skating, like stride for stride, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the best. Okay, we've been avoiding a bit of an elephant in the room here. Let's talk about that Kane hit on Kadri.
Okay.
Kane got suspended today or yesterday for a game.
It's so sad that they suspended Kane for the rest of the season. Was that warranted?
Season ending.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's kind of sad to say. I mean, one game, season ending, it's all the same crap they're done it for.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, let's talk about it.
That's a brutal hit because he saw numbers the whole way. Kadri, I don't even think Kadri knew that Kane was coming because his back was to him the whole way. Kane had time to come, and like the shove itself wasn't terribly hard, but when Kadri doesn't know someone's coming and his numbers are showing and he's going to try and win a battle in the corner, and even if you get shoved, the way you go in, that's so dangerous. You're within that 2 to 5 feet away from the boards. Anything can happen. Thankfully, it sounds like it's a thumb injury and not like a head injury, because you can easily smoke your head or your neck when someone shoves you like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the suspension was deserved, but what are you thinking about that hit?
I think if it was the first game of the playoffs, or it would have probably been 3 games. I think if it was a regular season, it would have been 5 or 6. But I think given the context of the series and how they're in must-wins, I think one game, I don't think it's short because the punishment fits the crime, or in the sense that they're probably done, right?
Yeah.
So losing him this game is very, very hurtful for that team. I mean, I've always said it. Those plays are the most dangerous plays in hockey. As a player, I would rather get destroyed off a hit in the neutral zone with my head down versus being in the corner about 2 feet from the boards getting cross-checked to the back. Because when you go in chest first into the boards, I mean, a lot of injuries come from that, head injuries, spine injuries, and players are out for a very, very long time on top of the concussions that come with open ice hits.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, thankfully it sounds like it's just a thumb injury, but he's going to be out for the rest of the series, which could be, it might just be a game, which is kind of funny. But let's think about this trade-off now heading into game 4. Yeah. Who do you think is going to like be shorthanded more? Do you think the Oilers miss Kane more, or do you think the Avs miss Kadri more?
That's kind of crazy. I was literally thinking about asking you the exact same question. So I'm going to say that Evander Kane is more important to the Oilers than Kadri is to
I agree.
Right? Just because, I mean, even with the year Kadri has been having for Colorado, we see that the insane primary scoring that Kane provides on that line with McDavid, and you've said it for this entire playoffs, when McDavid, Draisaitl, and Kane play together, they're the best line in hockey.
Yeah.
They seem to be providing all their offensive production, and now that Kane is gone, I think you're going to see Draisaitl's injury be a little bit exposed here. He can't hide as much as he used to. Yeah, I think it's going to be a beating tonight.
Yeah, I think the ripple effect on the depth in the Oilers roster when you take Kane out of it is bigger than than taking Kadri out of the Avs roster. I think because they don't have that, the Oilers don't have winger depth. Because now if Hyman has to move up, and now you're shuffling guys, I think Yamamoto's already hurt, so that's now 2 out of their top 6 guys are gonna have to step up. I don't know if they have the capacity to do that, and they're gonna play as desperate as you ever seen the Edmonton Oilers play tonight. So maybe they scrape out a win, but I don't think this is. I mean, granted, it is only one game, so they'll get them back if they win tonight. But I do think that the effect of taking Kane off the Oilers is is pretty significant for just the way their lines have to sort of work. And like you said, now I think Draisaitl's might have to. I think last game Draisaitl started up the middle and probably wasn't as good because he's hurt. So now if you have to make similar adjustments because you're missing 2 of your top 6, I don't know how you sort of get out of that unless, and rightfully and understandably so, McDavid could go on and have like 5 points and they win tonight. But just sort of before the game starts, from the outside looking in, I think that's not having Kane is a big loss for them.
Yeah, and what you're saying is true for anyone listening when he says that Edmonton doesn't have winger depth. I mean, Edmonton has a lot of bottom end winger depth, right? But they don't have that top line scoring winger depth, which is what you're saying is very true compared to a team like New York, who on the second line has Kopp and Panarin, who can play on most first lines in the league. Once you take Kane off the first line, I mean, nobody fills that role. Puljujarvi, Hyman, they're not first line wingers. And now that Kane's done, I mean, I agree. It's kind of sad to say. I really wanted to see this Cinderella story continue, but it's sad that it's not. I mean, it is what it is. There's one more thing that I want to talk about. I think it is probably the most controversial thing that has come from this series. The Cale Makar offside call in Game 1.
Yeah, that's another big one.
What are your thoughts on that call?
It's the right call based on the way the rules are written.
Yeah.
Like I think everyone, understandably so, at first glance is like, what the heck are you talking about? That's so offside. But it's because he didn't touch the puck with his stick. So it's technically delayed offside. Once Nichushkin comes back, then he can play the puck. And there's no way he meant to do that because that happens within half a second.
Oh, you didn't think Makar knew what he was doing?
If he did, then credit to him because that's a freaking brilliant play. I just don't. Maybe he did. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't put anything past this guy. I'm just thinking like skating into the zone like that. You don't always have the puck on your stick.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. You're completely correct. There is no ambiguity to this. The only right opinion here is that it was the correct call according to the rules, but the rule sucks. The rule sucks. Let's call it what it is. The rule sucks. The league statement said it was determined that Colorado's Valeri Nichushkin legally tagged up at the blue line before Cale Makar entered the offensive zone with the puck on his stick, right? What does this interpretation tells me? Offside is not what all hockey fans think, where if you get in the zone before the puck if you get out of the zone before the puck enters, it needs to be with possession. And obviously possession is contact with puck to stick, which I think there is where the problem is.
I think this is one circumstance where that rule on almost every other situation makes sense because it's a delayed offside. But delayed offside we usually assume is you're dumping the puck in, right?
Wow, I didn't think of it like that.
It's a delayed offside until he touches it.
It's a very bang delayed offside.
It's delayed offside for maybe 0.2 seconds before he touches it again.
I guess that's true. So you can't change that rule because then it takes away. Like, where do you blur the line between that and a delayed offside?
This is just hockey is that sport where the game is played so fast. There's so much randomness that this is a black and white rule. It's a black and white rule, and in some circumstances it sucks because it seems illogical. But I heard so many people on other podcasts on Twitter saying that the rule needs to be adapted. And I think there's room for adaptation. I just don't know how, because if we want to make the rules black and white, which is the goal for most situations, I don't know how this becomes more clear. It just sucks that it has to happen in game 2 of game 1 of the playoff of a Western Conference Finals. It's just a tough situation where a delayed offside happened, and we all know it wasn't the delayed offside, but the rules are set a certain way. I don't know.
Yeah, to pour some salt in the wounds of Edmonton fans. I mean, it's kind of funny that you guys are complaining about a series-changing call when Blake Coleman kicking the puck, everybody stopped talking there, right? I mean, it's really sad to say that this call changed that entire game. And you know what? It might have changed the series. And I don't think it's dramatic to say that. They were down 1 when that call was made. And that what was really important about that is I remember they were down 2 and they had just scored 1 to come back. And then Cale Makar off the draw scores that goal with that offside literally 5 seconds after the puck was dropped. So that building was quiet. Edmonton looked like they had taken control of the fans, and then Makar comes in and not only scores a goal 10 seconds later, it was one of the most disgusting goals I have ever seen in my life. He comes down point blank right up to Mike Smith and just nips it top cheese, as it is colloquially called, bar Mexi. It was just gross. I don't even know the politically correct way to say it was gross. And it changed that entire game. Now you're no longer down by 1. You're down by 2 with a buzzing building. They go on to lose by 2 that game. I mean, it was really 1 because of the empty net. And that's the difference, right? Jay Woodcroft said at the end of the game, that's not the reason we lost the game. I mean, bullcrap. He knows it. We know it. That is the reason that they lost the game, not only because of the goal differential, but like now they're playing on their heels in one of the hardest buildings to play with, right? It was objectively the difference maker. And another reason why that call changes the series is because maybe they go on to win that game, right? Let's say they go on to win that game. They might have confidence. Wow, we can take one in Colorado. Not only that, wow, we can beat this team. Maybe they take game 2. But even if they don't, if you go back to Edmonton with a split, you think you've won the first 2 games, right?
Absolutely.
Now they have some confidence. Maybe they can win game 3.
Yeah.
But, I mean, with that game loss, it just seems like this snowball effect where it's getting worse and worse for that team.
Yeah. And to make matters worse, they had to go in the PK after that too, because when you miss a challenge, you get a penalty. Do you think that should be the rule, or should there be maybe a softer punishment for getting a challenge wrong?
I love that rule in the regular season. In the playoffs, it seems kind of cruel. I mean, the reason that whole rule is there is they don't want to stop challenges because they think challenges are bad. It's because they don't want the game to take forever.
Yeah,
right.
And goal's going to get challenged.
Right. And in the regular season, you don't want a game to last 4 hours. But in the playoffs, I mean, I don't think people mind a couple extra challenges to get the calls right.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something to be learned from that. I think in other leagues they take your timeout away, but in the NHL you only have one timeout. Like in the NBA and the NFL, you have what? It's like 3 or 4 a half.
That's
not
also
more.
true. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think the rule is probably like fine the way it is. Maybe in the playoffs you give coaches maybe 2 challenges, and I don't know.
Yeah,
There's maybe a way
if they
around it.
Lose both, then maybe you take the penalty.
Yeah, just because going on the penalty kill after that in the playoffs is such a killer. Like, and playing against the Avalanche, that's not just we can kill this penalty off. It's oh my gosh, if we get scored on you, our game's done.
Yeah, no, much agreed. And I think the last thing that this play shows hockey fans is that the call that is made on the ice is so pivotal for determining the outcome of an eventual play. I mean, this one might not be the best example of it, because if it was the other way around where the call on the ice was an offside, that goal would have never happened because it would have been offside. But regardless, you need definitive evidence to overturn. And with how gray this rule is already, there was no way the evidence would have been definitive enough to black and white call that play the other way, right? And we saw the same thing with the Blake Coleman goal. If the Blake Coleman goal on the ice was a goal, it was a goal, and it was
a goal on the ice, and it was overturned.
I think that's why it was so controversial, because there was no way that was definitive evidence, which was the problem. I would have been much more comfortable with that Blake Coleman goal if the goal on the ice was a no goal and they ended up calling it a no goal, right?
Calling the ice stands.
Right, you need 100% evidence, and there was no way New York was gonna, or maybe it's Toronto. I don't know.
It's the NHL offices, but I think it's I don't know how the rules work, but it's in collaborations with the refs on the ice, because the refs are always looking at their little tablets with their headsets on and whatnot. So
long story short, the call on the ice almost always stands, and this showed it.
Especially with they got offsides, thankfully a pretty black and white rule, as you said, but with kicking, with goalie interference, with hand passes, those are all subjective. The rules are written in a pretty objective way, but we all know they're subjective interpretations of that rule. And that's actually so true. The call on the ice makes a huge difference, because especially in the playoffs, I'm really surprised they overturned that Blake Coleman, because they usually don't want to veer over to controversy. They usually stick what's on the ice, because you can almost always back it up by saying, not enough evidence here, we're going to stick with what's called on the ice. Yeah,
and it's not only that, there was not definitive. Maybe they have different angles that we saw. The angles that we saw did not show a distinct kicking motion. Yeah. And even if it was an 85% kicking motion, like you're 85% confident, you need 100% confidence, which is why when I saw that play get overturned, I was like, wow, if they end up losing, which they did, there's going to be uproar.
Yeah, especially considering the circumstance. If you make that call in game 23 of the regular season, fans are salty for 20 minutes. Yeah. But that's the end of Calgary's season on a call that's a gray area at best. That call was such a tough one to make, but we're not going to continue bothering Calgary fans.